So bear with me, this is my first time using this sort of like Britney Spears looking microphone, so I'm like getting used to this. Thank you. That's right. No, you guys are the star, because you're the panelists. I'm here to facilitate conversation. So thank you everyone for coming. I think you guys definitely made a great choice being in this particular room, because we have the best panelists in the whole conference, and we're going to have an amazing conversation. So for everybody else, they're definitely going to miss out. So today, I'm very excited to sit with 4 amazing experts that definitely have done really, really well in the international market. But before I start, I'd like to actually just get a better sense of who our audience are, so you sort of know like who we're talking to. How many of you are actually developer? Nobody developer? Okay, that's a few. How many of you actually in like more marketing on the business side? All right, so a few of you, more marketing. And how many of you actually already have business outside of China? Okay, many of you. So today we have sounds like you guys are very, very smart audience. So, and of course, you guys sitting here even smarter. So, but before we're going to start, I'm going to actually have you, if it's okay, we start with Richard. So tell us a little bit more about your companies and where do you guys have offices and what are some of your strongest market? Richard.
So my name's Richard Pidgeon. I'm VP Business and Development EMEA for Distimo. Distimo are a leading app analytics company. We are based in Europe. Well, we're based in Europe. We've got offices, our head offices in Europe. We've got an office in Amsterdam. We've got an office in London. We've got an office in Singapore. We've got an office in San Francisco and New York. And we've just opened an office in the last 2 weeks in South Korea. So we're going through a massive global growth period ourselves at the moment. We provide developers and publishers analytics around their download numbers, their revenue numbers, their rankings and reviews in all the major stores, not just iOS and Google Play. Unfortunately, we currently haven't got any offerings on some of the Android market stores in China, but that's something we're looking to work on. And we also provide developers and publishers with competitive insights to see exactly where any app within the app and in any app store, how it's performing, so that they can get a good insight to see whether it's doing good.
Michael.
Hey, my name is Michael Zhang, the president of overseas of ZQ Game. Chinese name is Zhong Qingbao, and also I'm the CEO of ZQ USA. We have office in, of course, 36 studios in China, HQ in Shenzhen, and also we have office in Los Angeles, Seoul, Taipei, and a few branches in Vietnam. We do game publishing and development. In the past, all like MMO client browser games. But starting from last year, we started to focus on like mobile titles. We have a couple titles released in the North America. The best one for now is called Pocket Knights, currently number 4 top grossing for Google Play arcade game. So we spend around $8 to $10 million each year in the West. So we work with the best advertising company like Fixu, Tapjoy. So I'd like to share some of the insight, hopefully, with audience.
My name is Rico. I'm working for a company called Fixu. It's a US-based company out of Boston. But we also have offices here in Singapore, Seoul, and Tokyo in Asia, with some other offices around San Francisco and London. What we do is we focus on user acquisition. I watched the previous panel about 20 minutes ago, perfectly down the aisle what we do. We run with game publishers and other ad publishers. We run the marketing campaigns to drive high loyalty, high retention users to their applications.
大家好，我叫吴震。我们公司叫 Cool Fish Games。 是一家初创的游戏公司，我们致力于开发全球市场范围的手机游戏。目前我们有一款产品叫 Iron Force， 是在跟 Chelingo 合作。目前这款产品取得了非常优异的成绩，在俄罗斯市场是前3名，然后在美国、在中国和日本都取得了不错的成绩。我们公司现在是在北京有办公室。
Okay. So thank you everyone for coming. It sounds like we have, marketing expert, game expert, and then, more from an analytics side and metrics. So now, which country in the world are you guys most excited about? Like most bullish that you think that, and then also which country? So is it the most difficult? Because sounds like you guys have offices all over the world. I almost thought that you were going to say North Korea, but you never know. That could be a very difficult market. But what are some of the you're most excited about?
So just to answer the first part of the question, I think China is the most difficult market for us with the fragmentation of the Android stores here, and we're yet to work out exactly how best to tackle that. As far as what we're seeing, a lot of excitement for obviously some of the LATAM countries, but Middle East and North Africa we're seeing a lot of interest, and I think Turkey in 2014, if I split an individual country, Turkey, but I think that whole Middle East, North Africa region, we're seeing a lot of investment, a lot of people who are targeting developers in that region, and a lot of money coming in from Korea into that region, and I think that's the area that you'll see a lot of growth in 2014.
So one thing is for the audience sake, I think for both of you is going after developer, right? So basically what you're saying, in these markets you find the most developer in North Africa.
Yeah, so Distimo's model is actually we have a free offering which is to developers where they can track their own data, and obviously China is an area we need to increase our presence and our brand presence, and then we have a premium offering where people can buy our data to see exactly the size of the opportunity, and that's why I say sort of Middle East, North Africa is an area that we're seeing a lot of interest from.
Yeah. Would you agree with this? You're also going after developers as well.
Yeah, so for Fixo as a company, I mean, we going after, we work with big data companies, big e-commerce companies, so I think our focus is a bit different from the marketers here in the audience.
Right.
So for us, obviously the strongest, the best games coming out of in Asia, out of China, Japan, Korea, but honestly there's great development studios all over the place, all over the world. I think more interesting, I agree with Distimo basically on the emerging markets. They're very interesting, a lot of saturation in big markets like Japan or Germany, the US. Honestly, however, I think it depends on the app, and I would be most bullish about the fact that you can market your app globally. So wherever we see a lot of demand from publishers to go after Thailand or Vietnam or Middle East, but this changes every month, I would say. So from data-driven approach, I guess I'm most bullish about the fact that you can market your app globally and change your strategy on a weekly or monthly basis.
Right. Right. So for our game developer, what do you guys think? What are you most excited about in terms
I think
of
from a publisher and a developer's perspective, we chase where the money comes from. I mean, apparently China is an amazing market, it's an emerging market, but in terms of the market size, US still the number one in terms, and Japan, of course. That's definitely the market. You don't want to be the ones. In terms of the difficulty of the market, really depends on the game genre. If you have like a traditional Chinese like car battle game or SLG game, it's kind of hard to easily transform them to certain areas. And I see the new market, like other panelists mentioned, Middle East, Some other title used to be published in that region and got a big, spending $100,000 for a single player for one title.
Where is that again?
Like the Middle East.
Really?
Yes.
Is it from like Saudi Arabia?
Exactly. So you don't expect a large volume, but they do have a big will. But depends on how you see the things. You have our pool like a large base like the US and Korean, and then that's the market you want to definitely dig really deep and try to get everybody. For certain areas like India, it's a new market. It grows pretty fast, but it's hard to measure. And we can do a best work trying to acquire users, but in terms of the payment, a lot of people they don't have a credit card. You have to work with a local partner or a platform. Actual efforts to get the gamer to make the payment. So some smaller developer I know from China, they try to avoid the competition and go to Russia and South America and the Middle East and made a huge success. But later on, if the big mover go to that area, the competition is going to be tougher.
Yeah.
If I can add on the difficulty part, so just one thing, that difficulties, I completely agree on the cultural differences. So I would say the biggest difficulty is to change continent. As soon as you go with a Chinese or a Japanese game, if you want to go to the US, it is quite difficult to succeed and you need to make adjustments. Or for American games to come to China, usually it's also very hard.
假设单纯讨论市场的话，我觉得，我目前最关注的两个市场，一个是中国市场，一个是美国市场。本来那个俄罗斯市场其实也是一个增长很快、很大的一个市场，但是很高兴是我们现在这个市场取得了比较不错的成绩。比较遗憾的呢是我们是作为一个中国的开发商，但是在中国市场做的并不够好。这个中国市场还有很多的同行在这个方面，包括他对中国用户的了解，可能都比我们做的要好很多。所以说，这个是我们需要加强的地方。另外，美国市场呢，我觉得首先它仍然是全球最具代表性的市场。在这个市场上取得成绩才能说明，因为我们要开发的是面向全球的产品，那必然就不能忽略这个最大的美国市场，这是我们是觉得需要面对解决的一个问题。
Thank you. So I'm going to also add a few words as well. So I run Dolphin Browser in the US. We just celebrated 100 million install 2 months ago. And our market number one is in the US. In fact, we sort of started in the US first because there's no Android phone at the time. And then about 2 years ago, sort of our founder is Chinese, but we sort of come back to China, and we found China market very, very hard, even though we were originally all Chinese. So I completely echo and agree with what you said about China. So, but let me sort of shift the conversation to more like specific country and region, right? Because I think that you guys have experience like pretty much all over the world. And let's start with the U.S. I absolutely agree. I think U.S. The ARPU is the highest, and still, although I think China and Japan definitely sort of head to head. In the U.S. market, what will be some of the tips that you guys have? Let's say, in our audience, there's a lot of marketers and user acquisition, and a lot of them may be individual developers who don't have a lot of resource. If I'm going to go into the U.S., what would you tell me?
I think what we see from the developers that are trying to conquer US, you can waste an awful lot of money straight away. If you go after, obviously everyone wants to get into America and conquer that market, but I think a bit of advice would be to don't launch or go have a big campaign straight away in America, but choose a country that maybe one of your competitors is having moderate success, but you can have a much better use of your marketing spend and have more bang for your buck in those countries. Run the campaign down there and hopefully start to see a lot more organic growth in those countries, and then it'd be easier to break into the States. Ruzzle is the example of the game that I always use, where they had really good success in the Nordic countries in Europe, and then 3 months later they saw really good success in the States. So use your money wisely, choose your countries wisely, and don't just go and think that America is the only country to try and target.
So are you talking about like Canada, UK, English-speaking country first?
It depends on what your game is and where your competitors are having success, and that's where sort of using data such as ours comes in useful. But it's important to find and have a correct strategy where you're choosing which countries to not necessarily launch in, but to run successful campaigns and sort of try it out where the cost of acquisition is so much smaller than in the States.
Yeah. By the way, I do want to point out one thing that he's wearing a Destimo shirt. That's a very U.S. thing. Like if you actually go to any U.S. event, everybody wearing their company shirt, so you have walking billboard.
I wouldn't choose to wear it, by the way. I'm only doing because I have to.
Okay.
What do you think?
My perspective, number one, you gotta have a good product. I mean, good title in China, not necessarily gonna do well in the US. So localization and make a more Westernized title. And second thing, choose your ad partner wisely. I've been doing this kind of bring Asian title to the US since 2006. And started work with a lot of advertising company, and a lot of them now focus on mobile as well. So currently, on the daily basis, we have over 30 partners. On the daily basis, we see their performance. We try to work with them to get the volume, and we do literally hourly analysis based on the performance. So that's why we can reduce our ECPI pretty low. We can do for North American to $1 to $1.50 our ECPI rate. And then the next thing is
Android and iOS.
Less iOS. Android will be lower.
Okay.
So I think we did a good job, and of course, get the good partner, because everybody mentioned they are the best. They give you a really high, volume and good quality, gamer. But in reality, you have your own analysis to measure, and you do non-incentivize and incentivize. Do the burst campaign, and later on you get organic traffic. And later on, you have to have a good live opportunity. We call it the live operation because those even mobile games are event-driven, and you best customer service, and American gamers are picky. You can buy stuff from Costco and return it in 6 months. They have been spoiled. They expect a high customer service. The last but not least, you gotta have a good tracking and management company to help you to get your numbers. So why certain gamer drop from certain level, so help you to improve your game. So that's the 4 segments, and definitely you don't want to miss any of those.
Yeah. So you picked them. What make them a good partner?
We pick a lot, but Fixu is one of the best.
Thank you.
For the record.
You said that on the panel last week, didn't you?
Did
Someone
you
else,
pay him
I think
to
it's
do that?
Tatjo.
So any tips and advice for us for the US market?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. If you look at data as well as how many partners or channels that you can use, I think I can only recommend to focus both on, obviously cost, but performance and optimization in combination before you start going after a big push. So it could be in a different country, could be Australia, Canada, it could be in the UK, or you launch, or you don't focus too much on top rank at all, but rather say we want to get the best quality in volume in that market. So it really depends on your application, on what you should do. If you have a casual game that appeals to grandmothers and kids, then maybe a top rank would be good. But if you're a specialized game, then rank is not always an option. But it is definitely part of the mix. So whatever channel, you should measure it, you should test it, iterate, and push.
因为我们是开发商，所以说站在的角度，可能我就直接谈一下在游戏开发上，如何开发一个针对全球市场的游戏。我的观点其实还是比较简单。首先，简单就是我的原则之一。因为首先你要做的产品是面向全球市场，大家有理解上的不同，有认知上的不同，那你一定要把这个游戏的产品或者说你的娱乐的产品尽可能的简化，能够让所有人能够理解它，能够认知它，这个是一个非常重要的一个核心点。你要想走向全球，你必须得把这个门槛降下来。然后另外一个观点呢，我觉得就是你需要把你的产品，就是一上来就需要考虑多国语言的问题，就是在你游戏推广出去之后别人需要从不同的语言去看待这个游戏，然后可以通过更多的图标，然后来代替语言的元素。我始终认为就是在现阶段的游戏产品来讲的话，大家已经从无到有。一开始是说我们有很多的人通过手机开始接触了游戏，最初的可能是像愤怒的小鸟像割绳子呀这样的一种非常简单的产品，他们可能第一次接触到游戏产品，所以说我觉得这也是为什么这些简单的产品能够取得那么大的成绩。那下一步呢，这些初步接触了游戏的玩家，他们也会去接触更深层次一点，就是难度更高一点的。那我觉得就是说，作为我们开发商来讲呢，我们现在自己的定位呢是说，我们专注于做这种比最休闲的那种大家都能理解的游戏还要深一点的，但是呢，简单始终是我们需要解决的问题，让它更平易近人一点。
So I'm just going to add on a couple more things for the audience sake. I think that obviously we have game developer in the house, but probably some of you guys may be working on like B2B. So I think that sort of if you're going after businesses versus you got going after consumer, and then within consumer, are you game or not? I think there's definitely a lot of things to think about. But my biggest tip, I think, for B2B, especially in the US, I think that you will be much better off to definitely hire local people to help you to build those relationships. I think that not against anybody at all, but I don't speak perfect English either. But just English in general, be able to connect with it. The same thing, like when you come to China, you want to hire China local, right? It's the same idea. So going to the US, one of my biggest things is just that hire people with experience to go after the B2B. I absolutely agree that if you're a game, work with Fixu. There's a lot of mobile app network will get you result like pretty much right away, assuming your game is good. One of the quick example is Flappy Bird, right? They actually, I think they were strong in Europe at the beginning, and it took them maybe 9 or 12 months, then it sort of catch on in the US, and then pretty much one game they make $50,000 a day. It's just insane. But just to speak on the non-game, right? So Dolphin Browser is a utility tool, and I think for 2 years we never paid any. We started to now never do any mobile advertising because we just really focus on product. And the way that we built it was actually a little bit more, like a lot of PR. We do a lot of events, social media, so a little bit less on the mobile advertising side. But having said that, we started to also.
So yeah, I think that, we all tend to talk so much about games when we come to these events, and we tend to focus a lot on games. What we're starting to see at Disno is that some of the non-gaming developers are starting to pay a lot more attention to their data, their measurement tools and everything. So I think they're almost playing catch up with the game developers that are out there and the marketeers that are out there. But it's definitely starting to become more important with the non-games.
I completely agree. I think you have to distinguish between consumer-oriented products or apps and then B2B apps. But I think with regards to the simplicity that an app should have to be successful globally or in other markets, I think that applies to B2B as well. Or let's say utility apps and e-commerce apps. I completely agree when you go to the US or as a US company, when you come to China, you need to cater for those distribution channels with a local touch. You shouldn't forget the product either, right? The product also needs to be either simple or it should be adapted to the local market. So that I guess maybe Dolphin Browser is how does it perform in the US versus China? Do you have different versions or
Different version.
different versions?
We had to rebuild the Chinese version. I just didn't quite work with the same version at all. Okay, so let's shift topic really quick. Let's talk about Korea and Japan. Japan, particularly for games, people are willing to pay. The output is really, really high. And then I guess now you have a Korean office, and you have Vietnam, and you guys, like Taiwan, offices everywhere. How do you think about this Japanese and Korean market?
I think we've sort of touched on it. I mean, that's why we've opened an office in Korea, because we recognise that we need to get someone on the ground. It's very difficult to get a better understanding and deal with Korean developers unless you're there and you've got someone on the ground. And I know probably it's been said all day long that localization isn't just about translation, it's just about the cultural differences as well, and that's what we're hopefully going to start to be able to sort of get to grips with and put an office there.
We have a Korean office as well, and we recently launched the title. I speak a little bit of Korean, but it's already forgot after I moved to. 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. Anyway, if you do, my base is in the US. So initially, we use our US user acquisition team to do the Korean campaign, but it's different. I mean, because in Korean itself, there's a lot of offline campaign. You don't have to do that in the US. And in terms of the cost and the impact, but in Korean they have other platforms like a T-Store. Some of the game will first going to be published in T-Store to test the water, and it actually generated quite a good revenue. And advertising partner are different, the customer service is different. But from my understanding, Korean for us still manageable. So our title is doing very well in Korean market, and but for Japanese market, it's really hard. Because number one, Japanese gamer, they have a really strong feeling of the brand recognition. If you're not like a Japanese brand, no matter how successful, even for American games, it's not necessarily could be easily adopted by Japanese gamer. And I see some other Chinese companies trying to spend millions of dollars to do the TV campaigns. They feel like doing that is gonna help company to build a company brand, but still. So we're gonna launch our title in 1 month. So hopefully next GMS meeting I have some number or some license I can share with the audience. But also we work with a lot of Korean developers, and with Japanese developers. Super difficult.
On top of that, can you guys kind of talk about, in addition to Korea and Japan, what triggered you to go to this market?
Following your comment before about business-to-business development, we definitely wanted to open an office in Seoul and in Tokyo to be closer to our customers, namely the big gaming companies, but also non-gaming e-commerce companies and so forth. I think even if you're so it doesn't matter if you're a gaming company selling to consumers or if you're doing business to business in Japan, I think having local staff, same for Korea, will help you understand the local laws and the local differences so much better. Because I would say many places in the world are different, but Japan, Korea and China, they are different in terms of how you do business, what you should actually pros and cons, what you should adapt in your product. So it was a great decision for us to do that and take that step to understand the markets better for our clients.
首先我们的业务还没有拓展到日本和韩国，虽然我们的游戏他们是在玩，我觉得首先日本的游戏行业，因为我接触了比较久，也会玩他们的产品，感觉他们的用户确实是比较对自己的产品比较忠诚，而对包括西方啊那些很先进的这个游戏产品呢，并不是很热衷，特别是日本市场，具体原因还不是太明白，但是我们在日本曾经下载榜也到过第1的成绩，这个是比较意外。我很意外的是他们，因为我们是一款 FPS 的产品，然后他们竟然会玩这种 FPS 的游戏，这是让我感觉比较意外。
你觉得你的那个游戏要做到哪个地步，你才会在内地发展？
因为我们现在的这个合作伙伴是 Chingo， 然后他们帮我们做了很多这方面的工作。我觉得找一个好的合作伙伴确实能够帮你解决很多的问题。他们也在这个就是对这个我们的这个游戏的全球化，包括这个之前也提到了，大家有这个文化和理解上的差异，然后我们通过这种中西方之间的沟通和互动，然后去把这个东西磨合的更全球化一点吧，可以说就是把那些文化差异的东西磨掉。至于韩国和日本市场的话，我们暂时可能还没有考虑，但是后续的话，我觉得这两个包括韩国的这个安卓市场是非常非常大的，然后日本的手机这个游戏的市场也是非常大。我们即使之前取得了很不错的成绩，但是在日本市场也是排名第一。因为我觉得从这个数据的表现上来看，我会感觉就是这个市场规模很大，因为我们在这儿有这么多的收入，还不能到很靠前的位置，所以说我觉得感觉日本市场的水很深。
Yeah, so I think a really good example of is what Supercell did with Gung Ho with the cross promotion. I think that's a really good, clever way to sort of get your game promoted in Japan and vice versa in America, and then that resulted in a dramatic effect on their revenues in both countries. So it's a really good idea.
Yeah, following up your points, completely agree. I think Japanese consumers, they don't, it's not about mistrust, but they trust local brands a lot more. So if you can use a partner or leverage a Japanese brand, that's actually an accelerator or certain amount of, gives you a certain amount of leverage. At the same time, I think it's not mistrust, but rather some uncertainty about, for example, your own data, privacy. They're very much concerned around, IDFA, Android refers, etc. So when you are a Japanese company, they would trust that you follow all the laws, etc. So in that sense, leveraging the local brand will add a lot of credibility to your title.
Yeah. So I think we're sort of running out of time, so I'm going to ask you guys a final question, but in some ways also a surprise question. What would be like the one mistake that in terms of going global that you thought you made and you would never do that again? And I will start with me because I asked you guys. And my final thought. So I think one of the biggest mistakes, at least we have made for Japan, is that it's not even a mistake per se. Actually, it's not even like a Japan particularly. But sometimes I think a lot of developers want to go preload. Right? You work with OEM, you work with carriers, and you end up just it takes a lot of time. For us, of course, we want it to be in, let's say, in all the Android phone in the world, and we go after all these guys. But sometimes I think that once you sign a deal, especially with these big companies, it takes a long time to implement a lot of these preload, right? So, like to think back, probably some of these deals we shouldn't do. we may as well actually spend the same energy and time, put it in a mobile ad network, maybe even get more install than trying to get some of this payroll done. I'm just putting it out there. So deciding on where you want to spend your energy is very important in terms of partnership. How about you guys? What are some of your mistakes and final thoughts?
Let's answer two things. So first of all, as far as I think the biggest mistake a lot of Western developers and companies such as us, we think we can come to whichever country it might be and just replicate what we're doing elsewhere, and it just doesn't happen about that. You've got to do some research and find out what's happening in those local markets and take on some local people. Then the other thing I say that we see the biggest mistake a lot of developers make is burning a hell of a lot of money by going after the big markets straight away. And then getting burnt and not having much effect and not really understanding why they haven't done it. They haven't done enough research into which markets and how much money they need to spend in different markets.
I feel like Yuchar didn't answer the question. She wants to work. I'm going to share one of mine. I made a lot of mistakes in the last 20 years. But one, in terms of the mobile game publishing, don't easily risking titles. Some titles, we tried last year, when Jiazhangmen, the top selling title in China, become very popular. We feel like, maybe that kind of a card battle game could be easy to pick it up in the US. So we hired a Hollywood, scriptwriter to redesign the storyline, and we have the best art outsourcing company to design artwork. And then we work with a third-party team to do the coding.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a disaster. It turned to be a disaster because a lot of in-game mathematics, you don't actually, conquer the knowledge, and you can become a copycat for the UI, and even improve. But in terms of the fundamental part of the game design, you are not an initial, designer. So, a lot of risking product came to the state, and they tried to make a similar success, but the majority of the cases got big failure.
Mm-hmm.
So try to create something from your insight, and or bring something like. I see the big generation for 2014 is the mix of the genre, little bit card battle, and with puzzle game, and the casino with RPG. So those mixing title will have the big potential.
So don't necessarily chase after the big market. Don't copy and reskin games. And
yeah, I would say you should go after a global market first. So before you really double down on some specific region, better test out as much as you can across many markets.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever fits your app. And I think from a mistake or this is something that you can learn from is also when you choose a partner. I think you don't need to lock yourself or your company into a partnership right away. I think doing business with the company first helps before you then really go exclusive, for example.
And you can date before you get in bed.
Exactly.
That's right.
首先我刚才回忆了半天，然后也没觉得什么东西是我觉得特别的遗憾的，或者是mistake 肯定是有的。我觉得，我举个例子吧，可能这个例子不能算是完全一个 mistake， 但是是我的一个我们项目的一个实际的经历。是这样的，我们的游戏有一个聊天的系统，玩家可以通过各种语言在这里边进行，因为我们的游戏是全球的玩家都在一起，然后所有的人都可以用自己的语言去跟其他的玩家去沟通。但是呢，就因为有这个沟通的功能，所以说我们的这个 APP 的评级定在了17，然后这个17呢就导致我们上不了韩国的市场。我们在韩国的市场呢就把这个聊天的这个玩家互相之间交流这个功能给去掉了。但是结果呢就是说这个产品在韩国的表现就非常非常差。因为本来这个东西是一体的，然后大家能够互相沟通，你愿意用什么语言，我愿意用什么语言， 都可以互相的沟通。但是现在呢，他们没有这个功能，他们待遇是不公平的。我觉得这个是一个我觉得算是一个 mistake。
谢谢。So one final thought, I'm just going to like throw it out there. I think another thing for everyone to think about, at least for us, I think we wish that we come in the China market even earlier. And just to encourage everyone, I think of course we're all very focused on our product, but you do have to kind of look at the world and in terms of trend. For us, we really focus on Android, and we pretty much grow where Android is going. So definitely, I encourage everyone to look at statistics, look at data, and even like watch what your competitors and partners are doing, and don't just focus on what you have in hand, but think about like the bigger future, where Android is growing, where can you go? So we're also looking at India, Russia, Brazil. These are all like very interesting market. I encourage everybody to think about. But with that, thank you so much for sharing your advice and comment today. And I think we're going to wrap up this panel. Thank you.